So good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ben Newton, and I lead Oncology Solutions for GE Healthcare. This morning, I'm going to be talking to Cheryl Bishop, our partner at Roche Diagnostics, and we're going to be talking about transforming cancer care using virtual tumor boards. Cheryl, please can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, Ben. Thanks very much. I'm Cheryl Bishop, Head of Alliance Management for Roche Diagnostics Information Solutions. Really pleased to be working with GE in this area.
Thanks, Cheryl. So, by way of introduction, GE and Roche have a shared and common vision around the evolution of personalized healthcare, with, of course, a focus on improving efficiency of care and, of course, improving outcomes for patients. We are two companies with global expertise, global deep expertise in the distinct areas of in vitro and tissue diagnostics, and of course, in vivo or imaging diagnostics. And what we want to do is combine these complementary disciplines under this shared vision and try to accelerate the delivery of patient-centric care through truly integrated diagnostics. And as we all know, integration of information and data is what will transform the personalization of therapeutic decision-making and the personalization of care to improve outcomes. So we want to make that care more precise for every clinician, make it easier for every clinician, and also more personalized for patients. And together we're moving towards delivery of this vision through what we've called the Navify Tumor Board as our first step into this integrated and efficient and hopefully highly personalized space. So Cheryl, maybe you could tell me a little bit about how you see this developing and how you see the platform actually doing this job.
Absolutely, Ben. Thanks. Yeah, you mentioned our first foray together as Navify Tumor Board. I mean, this is a piece of an ambition to really create digital clinical decision support solutions that integrate these disparate sources of data. You mentioned in vivo and in vitro data, the relevant patient data in a comprehensive way that's going to allow clinicians to make the best decisions for their patients. That is really the goal of this first foray with Navify Tumor Board. And the key is really to focus on the patient holistically. You know, it's not just genetics, it's not just the image, it's actually the patient context, the history, and all of that in vivo and vitro data taken together.
Thanks so much for that, Cheryl. I guess, you know, the virtualization of care is not a new trend, but the need for virtual working, frankly, in all aspects of our life has been thrown into sharp focus with the COVID-19 pandemic. But that has led to an unprecedented drive, I think, for the adoption of virtual tools, digital tools in healthcare too, to support social distancing and try to maintain, you know, the momentum in decision-making around individuals' patients' care. Do you see the same driver as well, Cheryl?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly been a unique situation and transformative, I believe, in the long run for digital health. So we've seen a couple of examples of how things are changing from a, you know, even a commercial perspective, right? CMS loosening regulations around what they'll reimburse for as regards telehealth. Unprecedented investment into digital technologies. The highest quarter, I think, for VC investment has now occurred during this time. You know, but importantly, you know, there's those structural things which are really critical. But I've been so struck by the impact on cancer patients, actually. So there are quite a few studies now that, you know, suggesting that they're really poorly impacted by this situation. A study in the US suggests that there's going to be in excess of 10,000 deaths in breast and colorectal cancer because of this, you know, people who otherwise would have had different outcomes. And also in the UK, there's a study for, you know, specifically those newly diagnosed patients, for those people who have a diagnosis and should be getting chemotherapy, but aren't due to the situation, or even those that aren't getting a diagnosis. And they're suggesting that over 6,000 people may suffer an untimely death because of these excess deaths, because of these lack of care continuity. And specifically, the clinicians need to be able to make these decisions in order to provide that care. And that is, for me, really where, we're trying to make an impact.
No, I agree. And look, I'm from the UK. I've seen those reports, and I think that's reflected in other reports actually across Europe. The suspension of elective procedures in many cases, the reduction in the screening capacity, diagnostic capacity, and of course even suspension of treatments, surgery as well as radiation therapy has led to those huge challenges. I read also that ESMO, the European Society of Medical Oncology, have issued specific guidelines to try to maintain the momentum. Of course, the momentum in decision making around individual patient care is utterly critical in terms of getting a positive outcome. So I think those challenges we see across both regions, US as well as Europe. I think also we've seen significant impact on how patients may be monitored remotely, and maybe that'll in due course lead to not only the adoption of virtual systems in diagnosing, but also supporting systems such as telemedicine practice to support patients in the community. Those challenges are going to continue, but the solutions hopefully I think are there to support the continuity of care. The other thing that we've seen, particularly in Europe, is that those face-to-face meetings, although they've been difficult because of social distancing, actually the virtual methodologies, virtual MDTs, can be as effective in exchanging information, of course, reaching a decision. But the tool that we've developed together, I think, with Navify Tumor Board, which allows the access to data virtually, rather than having to print it out, rather than to have to use it, securing the primary data source, pulling it from the digital data sources into the system so it can be viewed at the same time, could improve our practice going forward, and maybe reduce the time needed to access that information, reduce the time needed that some of the key personas on the tumor board need to spend, hopefully making the process more efficiency. So we're starting to see those benefits for navigators in particular, but also for radiologists and other specialties on the tumor board, so that they don't spend so much time, because tumor boards, particularly in Europe and the UK especially, is taking up a huge amount of time. I guess in terms of the specifics and how the Navify Tumor Board operates, it'd be good to get your thoughts and maybe just some details as to how it works, Cheryl, in terms of working through the cloud, for example.
Sure, Ben, yeah. And what we can say now is that, teams who have used it do find the virtual method as effective as in person. So that is great news for patients. And as you rightly point out, using the tool itself reduces preparation time and delayed decisions. So if they don't have all the information that they need, they may not even be able to take a decision for that patient at that meeting. But how we're specifically enabling the virtual use case there, right? It's a cloud-based system, so it doesn't require any hardware. All it requires is an internet connection to make it work. It's very secure. Completely secure. All patient data is hosted in a secure cloud interface with encrypted in transmission and at rest. So, this is a huge concern, right? Patient privacy comes up again and again. So it's a secure cloud environment. And then finally, it's a change going virtual, right? And we're human beings, and all changes are not so easy. So what we're doing is really supporting our customers with consultation and support to make it work for them. With the infrastructure that they have. And the good news is that we're finding that people are finding it as effective in terms of decision making.
Well, that's great to hear. And actually, a great example, and unfortunately still in this context of the pandemic, was in Sant'Andrea. Our colleague, Professor Andrea Laghi, and his team showed its successful use in the context of running a gastrointestinal tumor board and maintaining the decision making and maintaining the momentum around patient care. And that was published, I think, in the Journal of Surgical Oncology. But what was interesting is how the system was used to take that information that is essential to the decision making, but then linked it to Google Hangouts in much the same way as we're talking now, linked it to those virtual methodologies for interaction, so to make the whole process virtual and, of course, socially distant, but of course the momentum maintained on patients. And there were some other benefits too. I don't know, can you go into some of the benefits around the data gathering as well that you saw?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is a study we're really proud of. And they published an article. In that article, they mention specific benefits around continuous and cohesive data gathering process, that they had all the patient data in one dashboard versus separate files from each specialty and kind of a disparate process. The patient record and treatment history was documented in a detailed timeline, and that MDT presentation, the presentation itself could be generated with one click, very, very easy for the participants. So as a result, a shared therapeutic decision for all patients was really possible in that environment. So as I said, really proud of that.
No, I am too, and it's terrific to know that it made a difference in for those patients. I think I guess to sum up as we draw to a close here, the continuity of cancer care has always been a priority. The fact that diagnosis can't wait, it should be expedited as quickly as possible, and treatment planning needs to be swift and timely so that outcomes can be improved. It's always been a priority. It's been brought into sharp focus in the current global pandemic we're in. Virtual tools in this context are one component of this process to optimize outcomes. I think they're an important one, clearly, and there's some great examples if you described on how important they can be, in particular on supporting the precision treatment, because that's where the outcomes are really invoked. I see us working together more intensely because of this. And I guess, Cheryl, from your perspective, there's lots more to do too, besides with respect to the functionality and so on, right?
Indeed, absolutely. So Navify Tumor Board is really just the beginning, I would say, of what we'd like to develop into a suite of digital clinical decision support solutions. So there's some things already launched in the US around guidelines. Part of it, we have publication search and clinical trial match to make sure patients are getting into trials that might be appropriate for them. But there's a lot more to come. Cancer is really complicated, and those care teams are dealing with a lot of information that is being generated very, very quickly. And what we want to do is support those decision makers with the latest information so that they can make the best decisions really for their patients.
No, thank you very much, Cheryl. And listen, thank you very much for getting together on this meeting. And look, if anyone who's interested in Navify Tumor Board, the work that we're doing together, feels they're interested to contribute to its development, or indeed, of course, interested in using it, please get in touch with us, and we'll look forward to speaking soon. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure, Ben. Thank you.